cut tail and run. They bail because all of a sudden it's not giving you the instant gratification that it once did. And so this is when you see people hop from community to community. Like, it's just not, I went, it was fun, you know, I would kind of had my high, and now I'm looking for a new high. And this is the cycle that we see as Americans a lot of times. The moment a relationship is no longer delivering an instant gratification of meeting a felt need, you cut tail and you run. But if you stay and press through to acceptance, you enter a whole new stage. Now, Comer's not advocating, and I wouldn't advocate for staying in unhealthy places, right? That's not wise. There's sometimes you have to leave. And he kind of gives this, you see there's a little cutoff right there. There's this unhealthy ending that you can cut tail and leave just because you wanted to, because it wasn't filling your desires, or it wasn't giving you that high that you once sought after. But there's also a way that you can discern a need for a healthy ending. And he gives three rules of thumb for leaving in a healthy way. He says, number one, leave slowly. Err on the side of like staying too long, right? Like, leave slowly, not quitting too fast. Number two, bless people as you go. Don't go out bad-mouthing people. Don't go out slinging stuff. You know, don't go out gossiping. Like, be a blessing, not a curse to the community that you're leaving. And number three, don't decide by yourself. Make this decision with other people. Discern with other people, right? If you leave a community, don't just be like, don't be all in your head. Like, I think we need to leave. What do you think? People you trust in that community, maybe some people you've gotten close to. Is this a good decision? And they're going to give you wisdom. They're going to give you an outside perspective. That's a healthy ending. If an ending needs to happen, that's what it needs to look like. But if you're not called to leave, if you don't have to leave, then the next stage in the cycle is to re-engage and enter into health. And he says this, and I agree with it completely. He says, this part is hard. It's just not easy to stay in a community. Whatever this community looks like, we're talking about discipleship communities here, Christian communities. It's hard to stay with this cycle because we've been socially conditioned by radical individualism to put our own needs and our own desires above the needs and desires of the group, right? We're always thinking about ourselves rather than about the team. We're always thinking about what we want and how we want it to be and what our needs are from the group rather than what the mission of the team is as a whole. We don't think about it that way. We've been conditioned by our culture to think this way. And so the moment a community or a friend or even a spouse doesn't make us happy or meet our needs, they trigger something in us, they trigger wounds. In our society, we're gone. And that's kind of what we're taught. We go. And as a result, we never grow. Do you hear that? As a result, we never grow. We have all this these shallow things that feel like growth, and a lot of times what it is it's excitement. It's that honeymoon phase, that high, and what we think is growth is we want to find somewhere with people that just affirm our currently held beliefs, and we want to amen them and say yes, and we think we're growing in that capacity, but we're not. And the reason is because we can't stick with community because we're still thinking in an individualistic sense rather than a team sense. And so if we're wounded or if we have to go too deep, we leave. And as a result, we never grow. It's like going to the gym. Have you ever tried to get involved in a gym and like consistently work out? It's like you go, you buy your membership, you're pumped, you're excited, you got your new gym bag and all your new gym clothes, and you're feeling good about yourself. It's kind of a new identity. Maybe you're in a CrossFit world. You know, that's a whole different ball game, CrossFit. But you go in and you got a whole community of people, and it's like fun and kind of the opening, easy workouts are fun. You're like, I'm a CrossFitter. You know, I'm a gym goer. You start posting stuff on social media, and you're excited about it. But then what happens? Then the hard stuff comes. And then truly, if you want to grow and transform your body, then you have to put in the work. And you have to discipline yourself in the ways that you eat. And you have to push yourself to new workouts that are longer, that are harder. And what happens the majority of the time? What happens? You leave. You leave. You know how gyms make money? People that pay them memberships that never go. Like it's a beautiful business model. Like, it's brilliant. And we do the same things as Americans in almost every single community we're involved in. We like it as long as it's feeding us, as long as it's making us feel a certain way. But once we have to start disciplining ourselves, once we have to start putting in the work, then we question whether it's worth it or not. And like Comer says, and I agree with him, the result is we never grow. We stay the same. We look the same. We feel the same. We're longing for the same things to fill us, and they're right in front of us. We're just not willing to put in the time to get them. We remain spiritual adolescents who never mature into spiritual mothers and fathers. So we run away from conflict. We run away from the dark parts of our lives, from our blind spots, from our wounding, and from our healing. So to grow, we have to learn the discipline of staying. Now, I want to talk about two primary reasons for staying, but first I want to get your comments on this. Why do you think it's so hard to stay? In your experience, why is it so hard to stay? In a healthy way. We've already talked about a healthy exit, right, if necessary. But why is it so hard to stay?
I think it's easier to leave. I think we've got so many options. Most of the time, if we haven't been somewhere for a long time and have deep connections there, it's very easy to leave.
Right. Nobody's holding you accountable. You can slip in and slip out. Yeah, we take the easier road, for sure. What else? What are some of the hang-ups in all of this when it comes to a spiritual community and staying with disciples?
Well, you have to, to get to the place on this circle, you have to go through acceptance. Acceptance doesn't mean the other person changes, it means you change. And, that's hard a lot of times. I think it's easier to leave rather than change yourself.
Right. Yeah, a lot of times we'll place it on somebody else to change rather than, because we don't see a need for us to change. Right? We've got it together. I have my life right. I'm the more spiritual one here. You're in this community to change, not me.
I think relationships are messy. It takes a lot of investment on our side. I mean, we've talked about that before, but
Right.
it takes a lot of investment, a lot of time, effort. It's easier just to slip out and not spend that extra time of investing in others who are in that community and vice versa.
Right. Yeah, any community is messy. Relationships are messy. The people from all aspects and walks of life are messy. It's uncomfortable. I mean, even here this morning, you've probably seen her. She can't hear me, but the homeless lady that's been sleeping outside our building all week is in class this morning. That's probably uncomfortable for some people. She's welcome here. Everybody's welcome here. All these different things. Anytime you do community, it's messy, right? What else?
Kind of piggybacking the messy, and this is just from a personal experience that I had. Somebody else's problems in a relationship or a marriage or something like that may trigger something, or they become it goes back to, it's hard to do the hard things all the time.
Right.
But that's how you grow, no matter, you're talking about the gym or work or whatever, you have to push yourself. And, you know, everybody wants the easy way. But, I mean, look, our forefathers, grandfathers, all that, there was no easy way. They had to go, you know, do manual labor to live. And we just live in a whole different society now where everything's in abundance and you can just check out, you know, all right, I tried.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. There is that different perspective too in community when it comes to gender and personality, because my wife's perspective about things going on here are oftentimes completely different than mine. They are more, I don't know, they're more complex than my thoughts about what's going on here, for sure. Yeah, Rick.
People leave when the teaching doesn't focus on the emphasis that they think should be focused on.
Right, again, it's just one more example of this is an individualistic mindset. I think this is what should be happening, and this is what should be happening. Right, Paul?
So, up there on that scale, it goes from the honeymoon to apathy.
Yeah,
What is the original intent of the community? In other words, if this is a Christian community, then it's a church by nature, by its organic nature. Go back to the original intent. What was the mission? What was the purpose of the original formation of the group? If it was social, and there's nothing wrong with social, but sometimes that can be too much. If it's, you know, other things that become distractions to the original intent of what it was supposed to be, then by nature it will go through those and end unhealthily.
yeah,
That's why I asked the question, what would we do for the sake of mission? What are we willing to do for the sake of mission? So go back to the original intent of what the mission is. And it's not really what the mission is, it's who the mission is, really. Really asking that question the way it needs to be asked. What are you willing to do for his mission? For the sake of him? And I think the idols of safety and security and comfort and convenience can be huge problems in that we get really comfortable around people that we really know really well, and that we need to ask ourselves, what would we do for the sake of mission?
yeah. I think that's a great question to keep in mind all the time. And community is dangerous when you don't define why you gathered in the first place, and you don't have a vision, you don't have a reason for existing. There's perceived visions and there's perceived missions, and that's when everybody's is different. Now you're just a hot mess. You know, you got to define it, where you're headed together, and what this is supposed to look like, right?
I'm gonna build off of Paul. I know that's scary, but it's okay.
Don't enter that dark side space there.
I think, to build on what Paul's saying, when we enter into something new, we're receiving, and as we move down, at some point, we either get behind the mission, we feel a part of the mission, we start giving to the mission. But if we go down and we get to past that frustration area and we never commit to get behind that mission, the giving's worn off.
Right.
That's when we start leaving because we're not getting the fulfillment. But in the reality, if we truly want to stay, we have to get incorporated into the family and get behind what the family is.
Yeah, you got to buy into the mission. You got to believe it and believe that you're a part of it. Not just, I put my stamp of approval on it. You got to be a part of it, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think further ahead, kind of way I was looking at it is, to me, when you first put this up, and I haven't seen this in the book, but it is a very individualistic
constantly remind ourselves of the mission, constantly remember why you're a part of this community, all these different things. So Comer proposes two things, two primary reasons for staying. The first one, he says, the first one's pragmatic. He says it takes a long time to build this kind of community. Like, it just takes a long time, years for most people. And there are ways to expedite this, and I've experienced this in my life, and I'm sure you have as well. Like, you go on retreats together, you do intensive things together, and all of a sudden, now you've spent more time, you've made yourself more vulnerable with groups of people than just kind of coming together for a weekly meeting. You're going through life together, you're sharing different things, you're getting into conflict, you're working through that conflict in a healthy way. And so there are ways to expedite it, but most of the time it's not fast. It takes a long time to build this kind of community. The other reason for staying, he says, is we need this kind of deep, long-term community to grow. I think I put the quote up here. Yeah, if you can read it, it's pretty small. Dr. Joseph Hellerman, he says it this way. Spiritual formation occurs primarily in the context of community. Persons who remain contented with their brothers and sisters in the local church almost invariably grow in self-understanding, and they mature in their ability to relate in healthy ways to God and to their fellow human beings. This is especially the case for those courageous Christians who stick it out through the often messy process of interpersonal discord and conflict resolution. Long-term interpersonal relationships are the crucible of genuine progress in the Christian life. People who stay grow, people who leave do not grow. Remember, don't stay in unhealthy situations, but at the same time, don't justify it as unhealthy when it's not, right? That's what we do a lot of times. We'll say, oh, it's unhealthy because I wanted to leave, and then we justify it. We call it an unhealthy situation when realistically we just didn't want to stay, right? So notice his language here: long-term interpersonal relationships. You can chart your relationships on like 2 axis points: the length of time and the depth of vulnerability, how open you were to it. So there's like short-term, shallow relationships that don't change us at all. Like, I've never been transformed by an interaction with a TSA agent at an airport, ever, unless they molested me and checked me. You know what? Then I was transformed by it. But no, jokes aside. Like, you never transformed like just a quick, quick interaction. And then there's like long-term, shallow relationships. Relationships that make up a lot of our lives. And they're important, but they're rarely transformative. Like, you can live on the same street as a neighbor for 10 years, and like, you know them, but you don't know them. You know what I mean? Like, that's a long-term relationship, but it's still shallow. Like, I can go see the same barista every day. His name's Brian at Collective, and like, Brian and I know each other, but we don't know each other. And we've been chatting for 3 years now, right? I can know things about Brian, and we've talked about political stuff, and I could look at him and assume things by his appearance, but I don't know, right? You can kind of tell what I'm saying, right? He's a barista, and he works at Collective, so. But I don't know Brian. We're friends, but we're not friends. And so there are rare occasions when short-term but deep relationships imprint on our soul. Maybe like on a retreat or something like that. Like, we took a college group on our own personal trek one time. We did a week-long backpacking trip through the woods, and it was in New Mexico, actually. And Amanda and I, when we were in New Mexico a few weeks ago, we did one of the hikes that I took the group on, and I sent pictures to some of my old college guys, and they made the comment, man, crazy how impactful that short trip was on our lives. And I'm like, absolutely. Like, a trip like that, it changes you, and you become close to those individuals in a short time. Granted, we spent years with these kids, but that trip changed people. But generally, it's our long-term, deep relationships where change actually happens. This is why marriage can be so hard. This is why marriage can be so difficult, yet so formative in our lives. Same with therapy, or a best friend, or a long-term member of a community that you've been with for a long time. These long-term, deep relationships that require you or that ask of you to stay, to work through the conflict, to work through the pain, and to be transformed on the other side. Again, they're really unhealthy relationships, and you can't control other people's actions, but a commitment to stay on your part and a commitment to work through the conflict, especially in communities, is where we truly start to grow. But these relationships, they're hard to find, and they're even harder to keep. In all of history, this has been the case, but especially in our age, because kind of like Matt said, it's easy to leave, and you got a ton of options, and you can find your high anywhere you want to find your high, and you can hop around, and you can skip around, and do whatever. You don't have to engage community if you don't want to. And I tell you, for the life of me, when we came here, I tried to make it clear, like, this is what we want to do here. This is what we want to be a part of, is a true Christ-following community. Like, this is where my heart lies. This is where my mind lies. This is what we want to be a part of, and what I feel like we have been a part of, but a community that can do better, a community that can go deeper, a community that can truly live into what Christ is calling us into, and not allow people to feel like they can just hop, right? But make our mission known, our vision known, and let people know, hey, if you want to be a part of this, this is what we're about. This is what we are here to do. And I get, not everybody's buying into that. Not everybody is owning the mission. They're not even asking about mission. It's just here to, they're just here for coffee and donuts and fellowship. Fine, but we're on a mission. Or at least let's be on a mission. And let's start to truly work into community. Comer talks about this monastery that he visited and how this community, like, everybody has been there so long, and he talks about how they had to work through all these different things, and how they have to work through conflict, and how they have to live together. And he talks about the growth that this place has, how it's painful, but it's beautiful. He talks about how it looks like a village. It's kind of a park, a retreat center, curated grounds. It has all these different areas, and he talks about the physical, aesthetic beauty of the place. And then he contrasts that. He says, I think of cities like LA that are so transient and so poorly cared for. They're more ugly than beautiful. And he says many of our relationships suffer from a kind of urban blight because we don't plan on staying. We don't take care of them the way we could or should. He says we use them rather than love them. And I like that imagery. It's like something can't become beautiful unless you invest yourself in it, unless you care about it. If you don't care about it, you're going to fly by, you're going to throw your trash out the window, you're going to paint on the walls, all these different things. If you care about it, it's hard work. If you stay, you invest in it. You make it beautiful. Not because, yes, you want it to be beautiful, but you want it to be beautiful for everybody else as well to enjoy. Do you not treat your house the same way? Those of you that take pride in what you own, you invest in your house because you want to share it with other people. You value it. It's the same with community. So to live in the community, you know, we have to stay to grow. And there are 2 skills and 1 commitment that we need to learn in order to stay. First one is this: deal with conflict. Conflict will happen. That's actually like a sign of health when conflict happens. It means you've actually stayed long enough to be in conflict with one another. If you never have conflict, then you're pretty shallow. These relationships are pretty transient. And so that's not dysfunction. The healthy part of that is, how do you deal with this conflict, right? You're either going to deal with it in an unhealthy way, or you're going to deal with it in a healthy way. It means you're in the zone of engagement. When dysfunction comes in, it's how do people deal with conflict. I've dealt with conflict so much in my life as a minister. Really heavy conflict, and then some subtle conflicts or not so heavy conflicts. I've seen conflict dealt with beautifully, and I've seen conflict dealt with in a horrible, horrible way in my experience with church community. When conflict is dealt with in a healthy way, you always see people come out stronger, don't you? Like always. Like, we don't want conflict, but it's a healthy part of community. And so when that conflict comes, and then you handle it in a Christ-like, loving way, in a forgiving way, every single time, those people are going to be closer than they were before. In high school, there was this guy, you know, he just kept wanting to fight my best friend over a girl. I don't know. There were so many fights, but these guys just talk smack for so long. It's like, please just throw a punch. Like, shut up and quit talking, you know. And finally, one day, we pull up in the neighborhood. This guy's there, and I'm like, dude, just fight. They get out and they throw hands, and dude got whooped by my friend. They were so close after that. Like, they're like, oh, we're cool, you know, we're best buds. And they were like hanging out after. I'm like, what about me, dude? Like, I'll fight you if you hang out again. Like, that's how men are, but women are different. That's how men are. But if you resolve the conflict, that's an unhealthy example. But if you resolve the conflict, people are stronger. Have you experienced this? You got to learn how to deal with conflict. And so that helps us move into these different stages of this cycle. And you get to move into an area that helps you move on to a place where you can grow. The next one is to forgive, and that's a part of it. Jesus put such a high value on forgiving and being forgiven that it's almost shocking. He said, if you do not forgive others their sins, your Father will not forgive you of your sins. That's how high he places forgiveness. Like, if you do not forgive others of their sins, your Father will not forgive you of your sins. I wonder if it's because without this discipline, we cannot live in community. I wonder if that's the reason he makes this statement. Without forgiveness, you can't live in community. Some of you have been wounded by this community. You've been wounded by other communities. And maybe you're still holding on to that. Like, you don't want to let go of that forgiveness or that pain because it gives you a sense of power when actually it's wounding you. It's wounding you over and over and over. And Jesus says, if you can't forgive, your Father will not forgive you. I mean, pretty powerful words there. It's been said that marriage is the art of learning to forgive over and over and over and over again. And I've found that true in my own marriage. It's just learning to forgive. The same could be said of community. We will hurt each other. I will probably hurt you. You will probably hurt me. It's only a matter of time. And so it's learning to deal with conflict and learning to forgive. he says this, Comer says this, he says, the house of community has to be built on one simple foundation that we all share, a commitment to what ancient Christians called the conversion of life. And this term is from the monastic tradition. And conversion of life is like a lifelong commitment to spiritual formation, right? And so it's this idea of I'm moving into community, I'm engaging a community, not to get what I can get out of it, but I'm actively engaging a community for me to be converted. Like I want my life converted. I want my life being formed spiritually. I can't do that on my own. Like I need you guys, even as your preacher, like probably more so because I need you guys to help spiritually form me. Because a lot of times I'm in my own head. A lot of times I'm sitting with my own thoughts. You have to listen to me all the time. I have to listen to me all the time. Like I'm hearing my own voice. And yes, I listen to a lot of speakers, a lot of preachers, and read a ton, but it's like I need my community to help spiritually form me as well. If I'm isolated on an island, I'm dying spiritually. If I'm dying spiritually, you are not being equipped. You're not being fed every time I stand up here. Right? Paul, go ahead.
Well, this may go along with 1 and 2, but everybody's accountable.
Right.
We all must hold to this level of accountability. And far be it from me to say that, you know what I'm saying? Like, when I say that kind of thing, it's like, why am I even saying that? Because I don't want to be held accountable. And that drives deeper relationships, is that ability to be accountable to each other. You know, everybody. I don't care who you are, what position you hold. It doesn't matter.
Right.
If we understand that we enter a relationship knowing that there's accountability in that relationship and transparency in that relationship for accountability, then community is going to go great. You don't have to solve any problems if you know that if there are no problems in a relationship, but there are, you might be the problem. You know,
You should write that down.
it's all here. I forgot what I said already.
That last statement. If there are no problems in a relationship, you might be the problem. That's a good quote.
Well, I mean, but if you look at it from the standpoint of, I want to enter into this relationship knowing full well that I'm not here. I know I'm here and I need strength. It's kind of like what you're saying. I need strength from other people. And that includes accountability.
Yeah.
That includes transparency, vulnerability. Then you're converted every single day because of that relationship.
Right. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I do think as well, like, you know, obviously we say conflict is a sign of a healthy relationship, but at the same time, like, community shouldn't just look for conflict, right? You shouldn't exist in conflict. The same in a relationship, any relationship. Like, I don't want to just constantly be at conflict with you. I want us to move through conflict and handle that in a healthy way, and that has to do with forgiveness. But it's this conversion of life mentality to never stop growing, to become more and more and more like Jesus, more humble, more joyful, more gracious, more gentle, more disciplined, to become more loving. Secular psychologists, they talk about the difference between a fixed mindset, and this is important, a fixed mindset where people just want to maintain status quo, and then a growth mindset where people want to change and they want to grow and they want to mature and they're willing to suffer through pain to get there. Right? And so a lot of times we have a fixed mindset. I'm fine with the way things are. I'm content. This is good. It serves my needs, blah, 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 all that stuff. And then a growth mindset. Problems arise whenever Christians come to community with a fixed mindset. If they just want to make Christian friends, if they just want to hear other people agree with them about politics and theology and enjoy life, that's a fixed mindset. That's not That's not a mind that's pursuing Christ. To stay together, we need a growth mindset. To truly be the church, we need a growth mindset. To unhitch ourselves from the American business model of just consumerism, we need a growth mindset. To come together less like a country club, of members, and more like athletes training together to accomplish a mission, training together as a team to accomplish a goal. And so that's where my mind is at. That's where we're constantly pushing and where we're constantly headed. We have to be challenged. We have to be uncomfortable in some sense, in some way or another. We have to be moving through these ways to engage one another and to forgive one another and to help each other grow. Rick, and then we're done.
The example of an athlete is a great example because people usually have strengths in the upper body or the lower body. When they go to the gym, they like to work on their strengths, but you're there to work on your weaknesses. So
Right.
it's a matter of actively looking for, putting yourself potentially in situations where
Yeah.
your weak points.
Yeah. So on that, come August 17th, we're launching our small groups, our life groups. Rick and I sat this past week, or week before, I don't know, all the days we're running together, and are getting those rolling. And so that's going to be a big part of what we are here, right? It's going to be a big part of what helps you truly, Lord willing, be transformed and grow spiritually. But again, you're only going to get out of it what you're willing to sacrifice and put into it. So we'll be talking a lot